It isn't easy being a high school dropout and becoming one of the biggest billionaires in the world. But this guy made it happen anyway. This is François Pinault. Legend has it that when he was very young, he used to carry food to Allied airmen hidden near the family home during the occupation of France. Returning home one day, a German patrol grabbed little François and ruthlessly beat his father to make one of them confess. Neither did François, apparently, who never even blinked at the age of 7. The boy was already cultivating the determination, recklessness, and contempt for authority that would eventually make him France's most successful corporate leader. François was born on August 21, 1936, on the Côte d'Armor, a relatively modest area of Brittany. He was born into a family of small-time timber traders. After leaving school at the age of 16 without a qualification to his name, he joined the family firm to make ends meet. He worked there for over a decade until the time finally came for him to step out on his own to start his first business. A 27-year-old François borrowed 100,000 francs from his family and credited Lyonnais. In 1962, the business was a small timber company called Les Établissements François Pinault. And within a decade, François had set his eyes on expansion. He began buying up various small, undervalued firms in the process. He built a thriving business of his own. As time went on, François' acquisition endeavors escalated. The French government was seeking to preserve jobs by heavily subsidizing entrepreneurs to buy up companies that were on the verge of bankruptcy. And a lucky François was able to acquire failing companies at fire sale prices, sometimes paying as little as 1 franc for the next few years. François bought up numerous companies and then used government aid to turn them around and sell them at a profit. And through this, the savvy businessman gradually amassed a massive fortune, but things continued to go smoothly. François' ruthlessness in turning companies around soon became apparent. In 1986, he bought France's leading plywood manufacturer, Isoroy. And in just 2 months, he drastically reduced the head office staff numbers from 7,700 to 25, while he had been firmly cemented in the timber business. Over time, François' targets began to look different, and lumber manufacturers became construction material providers and paper suppliers. Then, in the early 19th century, more change came when François acquired the French department store chain and Printemps. The Pinault Printemps Group was formed 2 years later, following the merger of La Redoute. The group was renamed again, this time for Pinault Printemps Redoute, or PPR. By now, François was a multi-billionaire? His company was clearly on a path to becoming one of the largest luxury goods groups in the world. Of course, nobody gets to sit on top of billions of dollars in a single generation without being very, very good at what they're doing. And one thing you need to know about François is that he is really good at making money. It was now time for François to meet a worthy opponent, Bernard Arnault of LVMH. Louis Vuitton Moet Hennessy. It was the year 1999 for LVMH. Was already the world's luxury goods market leader, and Bernard wanted to add the grand Italian brand to his ample luxury portfolio. Gucci wasn't interested. However, after Bernard launched a hostile takeover, they desperately turned to François as a somewhat improbable white knight. At the time, François was looking for a ticket out of Western Europe, where his lackluster retail and industrial holdings were concentrated. So he decided to help out and was now locked in battle with Bernard for control of Gucci. By the time the legal fight was over, François staggered from the ring, dead-ridden but victorious. The two men had entered history as the Ali Fraziers of fashion, and they are still remembered that way. Today, François acquired a 42% stake in Gucci Group for $2.9 billion. And the purchase kicked off PPR's reign as a luxury powerhouse. From here on, there was no looking back, and François bought up several other luxurious fashion houses such as Yves Saint Laurent, Balenciaga, and Bottega Veneta. PPR had come a long way from its timber trading days, and it was clearly set on the glamorous path to luxury goods. But as François would soon learn, not everything he touches turns to gold. François founded Les Établissements François Pinault in 1962, a month after his son François-Henri was born after graduating from Ecole Business School in Paris. Young François-Henri did his military service, at an economic posting with the French consulate in Los Angeles. He loved California and wanted to stay longer, but his father's empire was calling. So in 1987, a 25-year-old François-Henri flew home to start working in the lower rungs of his father's company. Fast forward to the year 1999, and François had just transformed PPR into a multi-brand luxury goods group through the acquisition of Gucci 4 years later. However, with several of his new luxury brands ailing badly, François knew it was time for a drastic change. At the time, François-Henri had spent most of his career in the muddier outposts of his father's empire. And nobody really knew who he was. François invited his son to dinner and told him that he had decided to step down, and that he would be taking over effective immediately. And just like that, the younger Pinault was appointed chair and CEO of the company. Monday morning comes, and I go into my office, and I say, "What's going on here?" François-Henri recalled. "They say you're the boss, so you should go to the boss's office." Apparently, Pinault Sr. had come to work early, and had moved out of his office, and into his son's. It was funny, dramatic, and surreal. I never expected it to happen so fast. I was still only 40 years old, and my father was 66 and in great shape, full of plans for PPR, but he had seen too many omnipotent fathers and what they did. Being handed the keys to his father's business empire was a pivotal moment for François-Henri's career, but he was handed the keys to an uncertain kingdom. The company François-Henri inherited was lopsided, and struggling Gucci, led by the flamboyant duo of Tom Ford and Du Sol, had slowed, and the other brands that had been bought to complement it were losing money. François was badly tasked with transforming the failing company into the apex of fashion. Henri got to work, and for the next decades, he turned his father's empire upside down through a series of controversial hirings, firings and acquisitions. He quickly ditched the wood training and electrical distribution businesses and sold off most of the retail operations by doing so. François-Henri was able to venture further into luxury goods, but it wasn't easy. The pressure was constantly on, and he basically had to bend over backwards to prove he was worthy of taking over. The ambitious transformation also saw the unveiling of a new name and logo. PPR became Kering, and an owl became its own icon, symbolizing wisdom, change, and knowledge. The changes marked the start of François-Henri's footprint in the world. But then a hard decision had to be made with the renewal of Tom Ford and Du Sol's contracts due in 2004. François-Henri controversially cut them loose at the time. Tom Ford held the entire fashion world in thrall. He was a very big star, and many in the industry were convinced that Gucci would be finished without him. The decision to let Ford go was incredibly hard for François-Henri, but he analyzed where Gucci had gone off course and made sure it would never happen again. He undid everything Ford had put in place and decided that from then on, all brands would be run separately, and no designer would ever be bigger than the brand. Again today, François-Henri is on the cusp of unparalleled success. His multi-billion-dollar empire has an annual revenue of over $13 billion, and the company has grown to become a major global luxury group with an extraordinary portfolio that includes brands like Yves Saint Laurent, Balenciaga, Gucci, Bottega Veneta, and Alexander McQueen. To name just a few: computer programmer, pharmaceutical equipment salesman, military serviceman, Salma Hayek's husband, and father of 4 are some of the diverse hats François-Henri has worn, and his plans for the future remain as ambitious as ever. He is dedicated to leading not only Kering but also other companies, including his competitors, to a greener and more renewable future. And with the fashion industry being the second largest consumer of the world's water supply, there is definitely a lot of room for improvement. It makes no sense to pit purpose against profit. He said in 2019, "There is plenty of evidence to show that sustainable companies enjoy better performances, and sustainability is a business opportunity." But as powerful as François-Henri has become, he has become the first person. The Pinault name that comes to mind is still his father's. Even François-Henri's now wife Salma Hayek made that mistake before their first date in 2006. Had you already heard of the Kering brand? And it's an interesting history. Share it in the comments, and if you'd like to get inspired by even more unusual business stories, then make sure to take a look at our channel.